Cut my hair.
What's different about your face?
I do it every couple of weeks. Get rid of it. It turns all white. My kid makes fun of me.
It's vacation year.
Even when I tell her it's all just her.
We'll give it away.
We, Jess, we good? She's checking right now.
You're on YouTube, so.
A lot of reading on the plane yesterday.
Printing this week for the, all this stuff, Jared.
Good to go? All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Durham Select Board Town Meeting. We have a quorum here. Ms. Roy is excused this evening. Why don't we all stand for pledge of allegiance, please? All righty. See here, we have, let's see, any amendments to the agenda, tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Anybody here for public comment? No? Okay, we'll move on. All right, reports. Road Commissioner, Fire Chief, I'll let you guys flip a coin as usual. Thank you, Calvin.
So, Crooker finished paving Pike Main House Road, got that done. We're working on the shoulders, waiting for them to come back and do shoulders, so we're getting the edges of driveways right now to get people in and out of their yards. And we had a cattle extraction project over there in the field. We had to get some in there to get them cows out. So they put on the workbook for the guys, cattle extraction. They can be there what I want. We gotta get the cows out of the field, so we had to build a ramp there. The center line striping, we worked on that Friday, and I added a stack pole for 4.2 miles, and so oddly enough, they ran out of paint 4.2 miles before they were done on that side of town. I never dreamed that they would show up with the exact amount of paint to do. I just assumed that big box truck was full of paint, so they're coming back on the 12th to finish that side. The Swamp Road stream crossing is complete. Put in for a request for the $150,000 reimbursement from DEP. While that road was closed, we were able to go ahead and get those shoulders that had some pretty deep shoulders on both sides that we've been wanting to get to, but that road is so heavily traveled that it takes a lot of traffic control. So while it was closed, we stepped right in there and got that done. With the help of Maine DOT, we did the driveway at the intersection of Soap and 125 and replaced that culvert. That was a lot of work getting that, because you need traffic on 125 and Soper Road. We're really not set up for that kind of traffic control. So DOT stepped in and helped us out with that. And we did a few feet of ditching for them on 125 to offset it. That all worked out well. I've been working with Jerry on the CIP stuff. I've submitted my applications for 2024 and done some work on the spreadsheet. Fire Chief, Jerry and I, we had our town-wide safety meeting and fire station. Went over some things with policies that we're working on. And that's about all I got.
Okay, Calvin, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Calvin? No, everything looks great out there. Swamp Road looks really nice with the guardrails up. And
All right. Heather donated some curtains for the public works. We've got those all up upstairs. Those work good. We draw those and the guys can sleep during the day now, so if they get a few minutes to do that. So I appreciate that.
Right?
During the winter when it's
Yeah.
Good catch.
Firehouse Joe?
During the winter after they plowed 30 hours. Okay.
Great, thank you, Calvin.
Calvin warming up the crowd.
Chief?
I remind the board, the firemen never sleep, so we're 24/7, there's no sleeping quarters. The department was honored and humbled by the town support received after posting the colors at the Portland Sea Dogs game. Several family members and townspeople came out, appreciate it. The Honor Guard is in contact with the Maine Mariners hockey team to post the colors at one of their games. I just took a phone call, and that'll probably be Saturday, December 16th, 6 PM. So Saturday, December 16th, tentatively, 6 PM, for posting of the colors, Maine Mariners hockey game. They deserve it, it's sort of an honor, they had their family there, it's really pride and ownership. In celebration of Fire Prevention Week coming up, which is October 9th through the 14th, Durham Fire will be hosting their annual station open house. So our open house is scheduled for Saturday, October 7th. That'll be 10 to 2. And then the following Tuesday, October 10th, the pub education team will be visiting every kid at the Durham School. So they've been in contact with the school, the principal, that type of thing. Subtropical Storm Lee produced 0 911 calls to dispatch for us, believe it or not. Even with scattered power failures around town, no damage or emergencies were reported. Literally trees, we said it before, fall over on Cedar Pond Road and some of these things, but during a tropical storm, there was not a single call. So, at the fire department, call volume continues to show 20% increase over last year. The Quint will be going out for a preliminary inspection soon to include a windshield replacement. We cracked it at the last large fire, got a little close. The Durham Fire Ladies Auxiliary is up and running again with new members and new energy. So they're a component of the association. Several part-time EMTs and per diems have been hired or returned from summer break. So we have a lot of students from Bates College that come over and work with us for the day as EMTs to augment our daytime staffing. We're still having difficulty with nighttime EMT coverage. Again, there's only one provider that lives in town now, about 6 or 7 moved out. So myself and one provider, and we're doing 30% of our call volume after 7 at night. So we're looking into ways to augment that or figure that out. We continue to seek out our grants, and we'll be working on a $5,000 grant for wildland gear. That's a reoccurring grant. That's all I have currently. Questions?
You got your Ed McDonald grant, though.
We did get a Ed McDonald safety grant. That's a reoccurring that we apply for every year. And we got the funds back. So I believe Ed McDonald's is currently up to 3,000, and we got, what, about 1,800 back or something like that, back to the town. And we're working on, we got a 5,000 grant previous, and we're looking for reimbursement back to the town or the department.
Yeah, I had one.
Sure,
I-
sure.
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to email you when I saw it, when I
Oh,
first
okay.
read this, but, and so if you don't have the answer, no big deal, but I was curious as to, with the 20% increase in call volume, out of our call volume, how much of an increase have we seen with requests for mutual aid versus last year, years prior?
I don't wanna make something up. It doesn't appear exuberantly more,
Okay.
because every department, when I talk to them, their call volume is up. But I will have that for you, either statistically or next month if you want it.
Yeah,
But
that's-
we do keep track of mutual aid engines, station coverage, ambulances. We call them, they provide that type of stuff. It's all broken down, and I'll get you that breakdown.
Yeah,
But we do track it.
thank you.
And just to follow up on Rich's question there, if you're gonna say how much mutual aid we've given in that same time period, if you just let us know how much mutual aid we've got.
Yes,
That'd be awesome.
Yep. both of them, no problem.
And,
We have that.
So it's a 20% increase this year based off of last year's numbers?
Correct.
And wasn't last year a pretty large increase based off the previous year?
We've been seeing, and I've been budgeting for 5% increase, and this
Mhm.
year's 20. So that equates just to staffing, fuel, operations, that type of stuff. Last year was, if I recall, 5% increase in 911 calls, but 7% in overall responses.
Mhm.
So the rescue side and the fire side, we're up 7% guys going out the door. And we're up 20% on top of that. So last year, we did 373 911 calls. I know that equated to 521 responses. Again, fire side, rescue side, we're 20% above that. So up to another 100 responses and up to another, I think it's almost 80 calls, 60 to 80 911 calls. But again, if everyone takes an hour or two, times 4 staff members, it just adds up over the year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end, it adds up. For a volunteer fire department, it does.
Awesome.
And are those fire calls, rescue calls?
Those are
Result.
those are both legitimate 911, so there's no padding. Durham doesn't pad, so if I do an inspection, that's not a run number or a call. These are legitimate 911 calls. And I have the breakdown of rescue calls and percent medicals to fire overall.
Is it related to the increase in vehicular traffic?
I believe, talking with senior staff, that it's just the population growth in the area. I've been recognizing, we talked about aging in place, so senior citizens have more ailments later in life than we transport. And then I've really noticed pediatrics. We've done 3 or 4 2-year-olds, 5-month-olds. So there's a lot of young couples moving to town, and they have small kids. And they all go to Maine Med. So that's, I think one of them from Stackpole last week was a 29-mile transport. So I think it's just a combination of increased population in the whole area, the
And-
whole valley.
Do you track demographics?
I can EMS side, as far as transport, age, and male, female.
Yeah, no, that's fine, I was just gonna make that
Yeah.
correlation of age staying, age in place, things like that, I was just curious if that's a number that is actually, that we could put some substance to,
Yep.
rather than just.
We can do that with our data, but because I go on almost every call,
Sure.
it's just by being there. But we can do that too. And towards the end of the year, I'll give you all that, especially budget season now, all the data that you want, and however you want to look at that. So that could be population. We do zones, like which district we go to more, whether it's Shiloh, Soper Road, or whether it's Stackpole, that type of thing. And then we break it down to response times, and we even break it down into staffing, so during the day when there's a per diem there, and how long it takes them to turn out, respond, that type of stuff. And at night, when there is no staffing or nobody on call, how long that takes to turn out and then respond.
So you could actually break it down and look at the population, because I think we have probably an idea of how many at different age groups in town. You could probably extrapolate from there for a budgetary number that might be
I could try,
justified.
I would take the demographics,
Yeah.
yes.
And
It-
layer it over what we think the population makeup is.
Sure.
For a budgetary number
We're responding,
later on.
and everyone looks at data differently, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get, ahead of time, if you give me what works for you,
Mhm.
we can get those. I'll give you generics. So with a population in town of 4,100, we're responding to 10% of the population every year. And that's usually what it is, but we're doing over 400. We will hit well over 400 911
And
calls.
population.
And as a population, yeah. Yeah.
I don't, to be honest with you, the demographics doesn't really matter to me, it was just what you said in terms of, in talking to
Sure.
the older members of the, the only number that I would really wanna see is, you say 10% of the Durham population, but how many of, then that number could we extrapolate out in terms of motor vehicle accidents of non-residents of the town?
Ooh, I don't know. Last year we did 52 motor vehicle accidents, and I don't know what we're at right now. I don't know if I could give you, only because if you don't transport, we do refusals, but if there's no data taken, then we wouldn't really know and give you an exact amount on, in town or not.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's really irrelevant, it was more curiosity.
Sure.
Because I want you to go, I want you to seem like,
Well,
hey,
again,
only
everyone,
take care of them Durham
No,
folks
no.
out there. I was just trying to
Clear.
figure out where, if there truly is an increase to population or truly due to an aging population,
sure.
if we could maybe somehow understand that better to maybe formulate our services around that particular demographic and or outside service. That's all I was looking for the information.
There are programs like that, where you take the community risk reduction, where you see what you're spending your money on, what you're responding to, and if that was senior citizen slip and falls, you could get a grant or start a slip and fall program
Sure.
for that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind was just going, because if you're mentioning, increased vehicle traffic, we have a lot of, 3 major roads that have a lot of small roads coming in. I feel like every time I see something on an incident, it's someone pulling out of one of our, town roads onto a main
They
road.
do seem to be at intersections.
And it's one of those things that's like, if there's trends like that, or trends with like aging in place, those sorts of outreach and education opportunities and stuff like that could help mitigate that and maybe reduce a couple
And we do
calls.
some of that at the open house, where
Yeah.
we give out informational packets, paraphernalia. But I'll work on that data.
Remind people to wear their spikes this winter.
Yeah, it's gonna be a winter. Anything else?
Oh, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good
Appreciate
day.
it.
Have a safe evening.
Appreciate it. Now I got homework.
Okay, old business, we have no old business to discuss tonight. Okay, new business, correction to the homestead reimbursement. Donna,
Hey there,
hi, good evening, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for meeting with me. Actually, we have a correction to our commitment. At the time that we committed, the tax rate calculation sheet that I use in our trio assessing was at last year's 73% reimbursement. So this year, we get to have a 76% reimbursement, except that our software had not been updated at the time that we did commitment, and I did not notice it. So I have to report to the state, and when I went to report to the state, I noticed that the state forms that I use gave us a higher homestead reimbursement. So it ends up that we have $12,000 more from the state coming to us. I just need your signatures on all of the corrected commitment papers.
So we're getting more
Yeah,
money as a
Yeah.
result
yeah,
of the miscalculation.
yeah.
It happens.
Well, and because we commit early, our software vendor should have this updated way before we commit.
Is there a-
Unfortunately, it never happens.
Is there something that's gonna remind them this year,
Well,
other than you?
I'll be sure to check again next year,
Yeah.
but I think the other thing is, the year before, I don't know if you remember, but I had to cross out and put information in by hand because it hadn't been done. So,
And this year too, we were dealing with stabilization, trying to
Yeah.
get that.
well,
working on
yeah,
CEO.
he's nice, yeah, but I should have seen it was 73 and not 76. So if you don't mind signing
There you
again,
go.
he's good to me, I appreciate him. If you don't mind signing again, I'd appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Do you have,
We do have it.
do you have to vote on that?
I
No.
don't believe
No,
so.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Well,
Seems
Okay.
more clerical than anything
Yeah.
else.
What do you call it?
What's that?
Human
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
so
hiccup?
it's just an error.
yes. And the good news is it went in our way, so.
Yeah.
And it was, I should have looked and saw that it wasn't 76, but. So the other thing that I have is if I'm here and I have abatements, I might as well go over them because why not? I'm not leaving, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Are we good?
Yeah, no, I'm good. We can
Okay.
Keep going.
All right, so the first,
Fine, we'll listen.
the first abatement that I have is I have a property that I thought was a split. it had an exception in the deed, and I split it out. The new owner called and said, no, I got the whole thing. So we need to abate both of them and send out a supplemental bill, putting it back together. Are you gonna vote on these, or you want me to just keep going?
If you wanna list the map and lot number,
Yeah.
I
of which
100
one you're
Yep.
specifically speaking of.
Okay, I am on map 8, lot 67, and I'm doing them in the order that was on the agenda.
Excuse me, one second. Do we need to be assessors at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I move that,
make a motion to become the board of assessors?
yes.
Second by Josh, all in favor? Okay, we are the board of assessors, now we can keep going. Thank you.
Okay.
Start right over there.
So anyways, the first one is map 8, lot 67, and it includes lot 67B, and I have those together. So it is an abatement of 2 properties and a supplement of 1. So we're getting rid of both of the properties and combining them and sending a bill for 1. Okay? So these will also require your signatures.
So
All
you're saying what happened with that is you thought that the property was split?
I thought it was split. It had an
And then
exception in it.
A portion of it was transferred, but it was actually the whole
It was
property?
actually a whole thing.
Yep.
This is for all of those, this explains all of those. all of
Yeah,
those.
so the next one that I have is the Wonder property. It is a homestead exemption that they did not get, that they were entitled to.
So, just a follow-up question there.
Sure.
Is that a matter of, just a simple clerical error, they had sent in their homestead
They had
exemption
applied,
in
yeah.
the time and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Okay.
Yeah, and it did not get applied.
Yeah, just a point of order,
Yes, sir.
we're an assessor, we should vote on the first one that
Well,
we
the
did.
first one, I didn't know. if you
It's hard to
wanted
do all of them because
No.
it's,
Yeah, they're all different.
they're all different.
Okay. First one was, is it the first one on the
Josh
list here?
has it.
So,
Map 8, lot
Which one is it?
67 and lot 67B.
Okay,
move that
Go
we,
ahead,
accept the abatement in the supplemental and the, map 8, lot 67 and 67B.
have a second?
Second.
Jim seconds, all in favor? Okay. That passes. All right, now we go to the next one.
Okay. So the next one is map 3, lot 18. It is a homestead exemption that did not get applied in error.
Okay. Make a motion that we accept, map 3, lot 18. That's provided by Donna.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, passes.
So the next one is a park model trailer that I had assessed as personal property, and it was located at the campground. The owner of record moved it to Norway. This is a catch-22 situation because it's not a mobile home, so it does not need a CR 125 to move it over the road. And if they don't tell me, I tax it. So it's not here. I called Norway, it was in Norway on April 1st, so we need to abate it.
I'll move that we, abate, the personal property account number 188.
Second.
Joe seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. Personal property lot 188.
the next one is an abatement for 2 years. It's for Jonathan Benedict. This is a property that was split in 2022, and he built a new house on it. It was classified under the state of Maine farmland program, and when the property was split, the classification for farmland did not follow it, and it should have. So because these are state programs, by law, they need to be implemented for all of the years that they were classified. So my recommendation is that we abate for both 22 and 23.
Just for my edification, what is under the state farmland program mean?
So, state of Maine offers current use programs.
Okay, so that's just part of the current use.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with the farmland.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, farmland's one of them.
So that goes backwards to the beginning of the year, so that it becomes a regular lot at this point?
Well,
Changing it over? and it's-
Well, it should have been, the farmland classification and the lower value should have followed it, and it didn't.
Okay.
So, we have to, for April 1st, 22 and 23.
Move that we accept the abatement for lot, or map 8, lot 56A1 for the tax years of 2022 and 2023.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, motion carries. All right,
We good?
thank you, Donna.
Thank you, both,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Yep. Do we need to be in assessors for the audit or come out?
No,
No.
no, you don't have to be in the census, no,
No.
come back out.
Okay, I have a motion to come out of the assessors.
So moved. Second.
Rich and Josh, Joe, and all in favor? All right, we're no longer board of assessors.
None of them, my pen.
Assessment
So I just
mode,
wanna make sure to get-
back into our regular meeting. You should have all signatures, Jerry, especially the first one. Right, all right, you're, yep, sure. We'll have Jennifer Connors from our auditing firm. Here's a presentation.
All right, thanks for having me. I did bring some copies of the graphs, in case anybody doesn't have them. Looks like you all have them though, so.
You give them to those folks if they want.
Sorry?
I said you can give one to them if they want.
I printed,
Oh,
oh, all
okay.
right. You're ahead of me then. So I'm here to talk about the results of the 2022 audit. So you have the set of graphs that we put together. It's just kind of a brief overview of the audit itself. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump in anytime. I'll just kind of go through these. So on the second page, we have an overview of the audit results. So for the timing of the audit, we were actually here the week of February 6th. The reports were not issued until August 17th of 2023. The financial statements did receive an unmodified opinion, which that means the financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So it's a clean opinion on the financial statements. Besides the financial statements, we are also required to issue a report required by government auditing standards. And under those standards, we are required to do testing of internal controls as they relate to financial reporting, as well as compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. And under those requirements, the town did receive a finding related to budget over expenditure, which we can go into detail on that a little bit later. They received a material weakness related to cash account reconciliations. That is actually a repeat comment from 2021. There was a significant deficiency related to segregation of duties, and there was a significant deficiency related to preparation of financial statements and audit adjustments. Now, to give you an idea of what the different levels are, A material weakness is something that would be considered systemic, and it's serious enough that we definitely want to bring it to your attention. It's something that does need to be addressed. A significant deficiency would be a step down from that, something that's not necessarily systemic, but still serious enough to bring it to your attention, something you want to consider and address before it becomes a material weakness. And then below that would be just other recommendations, other comments. We did have a few of those as well. Those are just minor things that we see, and we make recommendations on ways that you can tweak your internal controls. And then a finding, that is an actual compliance issue. Because you do pass a legally binding budget, if you overspend in one of the categories, then that's considered a compliance finding. If you turn to page 3, we'll start kind of going over the numbers in the financial statements themselves. So the first graph we have is the general fund balance, and it is broken down into its different categories, and then it's shown over the last 5 years. So the first category that we have is restricted, and restricted is an amount that is, well, it's what it sounds like. There's usually an outside party that will tell you how that money can be used. That would usually be the state or a granting agency. So they're very limited in their purpose. Think of grants, donations, scholarships, those types of things. The next step down from that would be committed funds, and those are the town's reserves. Those are amounts that are voted on and set aside for a specific purpose, and it would take another vote to uncommit those. So the intent is that they carry forward from year to year to be used for very specific purposes. The next step down from that are assigned fund balance amounts, and those are amounts that have been basically internally designated or earmarked, but if they don't get used, they lapse back to unassigned fund balance. Those are typically made up of amounts that you have budgeted to use in the next year. So in particular, this 2.5 million, that is made up of revenues and fund balance that you've determined you're going to use in the 2023 budget. And then the last category is unassigned fund balance, and that is your portion of fund balance that is left over after you put amounts into all of those other buckets. Now, total fund balance in 2022 did increase in total by about $481,000 over 2021. Now, you will see that unassigned fund balance did actually decrease, even though total fund balance increased. The reason for that is that some of these other categories increased. So committed fund balance increased from $842,000 to $955,000. And assigned fund balance took a big jump from about 1.5 million to 2.5 million. So when you increase those other categories, you are taking away from your unassigned fund balance because it's shifting it from one category to another category. And then the next few graphs will kind of go into why your fund balance increased. So on page 4, we have the general fund revenues. This is budget to actual analysis. And looking at some of the larger variances, you can see the taxes were higher than budgeted, and that was due to higher than anticipated vehicle excise taxes. Intergovernmental revenues were higher than anticipated due to state revenue sharing, which was higher than budgeted, as well as some unbudgeted grant revenues. Investment income was under budget, which was pretty consistent everywhere due to interest rates. And then other revenues were higher than anticipated due to higher miscellaneous refunds and revenues. Overall, total revenues were higher than budget by about $396,000, which is about 4% of the budget.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question along the
Sure.
way here?
Sure.
What I didn't see in the graphs, and maybe I'm just colorblind, but the restricted fund balance on 2022, 21, 2019, I don't see that color at the top of the graph. Is that just because I can't see?
I think it's because it's such a
Or
small
the
amount
small
that
amount?
it's
Well-
just a sliver, I can see.
Yeah, it is.
2018, it's at 21,000,
But
and
if you
that's
look at the
blue.
number at the bottom, since it's just right there. And I make out just a hair of blue on the top.
So what you're seeing in 2018, that bigger blue block is
Is that-
actually non-spendable
Oh,
fund
that's the
balance.
479.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just, maybe that's just the colors are all.
Yeah, no, it's such a small piece,
Yeah.
it doesn't really show
I
up.
had the same issue.
Okay,
So
I
it
brought it
took
up
me-
on the screen, it probably.
No, you're
easier
not
to
allowed.
see. All right, thank you, sorry.
It's such a
Sure.
sliver at
No,
that
okay,
scale.
good, thank you, everybody. Just wanna make sure I'm reading this right.
Your circle's actually circled it, so.
Yeah. it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going on to page 5, these are the general fund expenditures, again, budget to actual variances. So general government expenditures were under budget, that had to do with turnover in management and administrative positions and change in benefit selections. Public safety expenditures, that's the category that we discussed earlier that was over budget, and that had to do with vendor invoices that were received late. We can get into that a little bit as well if you'd like. Public works expenditures were under budget due to reduced use of overtime, lower than anticipated paving costs, and changes in benefit selections. Unclassified expenditures were under budget, and that is because that category includes overlay, but the overlay was only used to offset about $16,000 in abatements. And then capital outlay was under budget due to the timing of projects and capital purchases. So overall, total expenditures were about $535,000 under budget. Okay. The next graph that we have is an overview of the expenditures. So each category is expressed as a percentage of your total expenditures for the general fund, just to kind of give you a visual idea of where your largest expenditures are. And then actually on the next page, we have the 2021 expenditures, so you can kind of compare the 2 years. You can see that they're fairly consistent, and really the only 2 categories that changed, education increased by 1%, and capital outlay decreased by 1%. All of the other categories were exactly the same. So on page 8, this is a more detailed table of the committed fund balance. So again, these are the reserves. These are the amounts that the town has voted to carry forward from year to year, and they don't lapse unless there's another vote to basically uncommit those funds. Now, all of these amounts are carried in the general fund operating account, with the exception of the restoration fund, which is included in a separate bank account. Any questions on those? No, okay. Now, we had a meeting last year to go over the reserves, and there was some discussion about how these amounts are tracked, how these amounts are budgeted. And I can say that in 2022, there was an improvement in this area. I know Jerry worked very hard in tracking those amounts. He was actually able to give me one of these tables already filled out, and then we kind of worked together to tweak them, which was a big improvement over the prior year. In addition, the way that the warrant articles were written, a lot of the assigned revenues were in one warrant article, which made it a lot easier to pick out those amounts. So that was definitely an improvement over the prior year. And then on page 9, we have an overview of the restricted fund balances. So again, these are particular amounts that the town is carrying forward from year to year to be used for very limited purposes. And they're made up specifically of scholarships and amounts that have been donated. Now I have a subtotal in here, so you can see that $13,242 of the restricted funds, these are amounts that are actually held in the operating account, in the general fund cash account. And then there's the other two amounts, the River Park project and the scholarship fund, those are held in separate bank accounts.
Are the receipts in those two, is that interest?
I'm sorry?
The receipts received?
River Park and Scholarship Fund, those are interest, and then the other two funds, if I remember correctly, those are donations. And then the last graph, this one has a lot of numbers, so bear with me. Last year, we did this analysis of the operating cash. So this is specifically the general fund cash account where all of your operating expenses are paid out. So your total operating cash as of 12/31/22 as compared to 12/31/21 actually increased by about $728,000. So you had more cash in the bank, which is a good thing. Now, because your taxes are not actually committed until August, one of the issues that you run into is that that cash that you have as of the beginning of the year has to last you until you can actually raise those taxes. So what we've done is kind of an analysis of how much you have available to cover your bills, basically. So if you have an estimate of your non-tax revenues, so those would be your licenses, fees, those types of things that you collect. We did back out any one-time grants, and then you subtract from that any estimated expenditures. Those would be your basic operating expenditures. They don't include any one-time capital outlays. The net amount that you have left is about $381,000 as of 12/31/22. Now, when you compare that to 12/31/21, you actually had a deficit. So that means that your bank account was actually low enough that you ran the risk of not having enough money in your bank to cover your bills, is basically what that means. Now, on the bottom here, we did an analysis of the expenditures, and that operating cash balance of $4.7 million, if you remember, I mentioned those other amounts, the restricted balances and the committed balances held in the reserves, those are also included in that cash account. So when you back out those amounts, the amounts you actually have available for expenditures is closer to 3.8 million, not 4.8 million. So you have to take that into consideration. So from a cash flows perspective, you're okay, you have a little bit of a cushion, but you still have to keep in mind that that cash has actually already been earmarked for other purposes.
I just had a quick question here. In
Sure.
that second section here,
Yep.
where you're coming up with the available expenditures, and like you said, looking at that cash, taking out the restricted stuff, I see that you didn't add in the estimated non-tax revenue from above. So would it actually be a little bit more cash available, because there's that?
Yeah, so
Revenue
that
throughout
is
the year.
actually, that is available for expenditures amount, that's just a snapshot as of
Mhm.
12/31/22.
Okay.
Whereas at the top, I'm kind of rolling it forward until you
Okay,
raise
sorry, yeah.
taxes,
Yeah, I understand.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that 3.8 million, I also kind of did a little calculation off to the side, that represents about 5 months worth of expenditures.
Mhm.
So we said that originally you needed about 7.25 months worth of expenditures. But once you back out those amounts, those restricted and committed amounts, you only have about 5 months worth on hand. Any questions about that? I know I'm throwing, it's a lot of numbers to take in all at once. Nope, okay.
Yeah, so just so I understand this, based off my previous question there,
Mhm.
so you're saying 5.5 months available, like cash on hand of worth of expenses, and that includes revenue that's coming in daily through fees and things that we collect here at the front desk and stuff like that? That's included in that extrapolation?
Well, so that 3.8 million is 5 months' worth of expenditures, but again, that's just as of
Mhm.
12/31/22.
Mhm.
So that doesn't include any revenues or expenditures
Mhm.
that you're gonna, or any
Okay,
revenues
yeah.
that you raise after that,
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's it, what I have for the numbers, unless, is there anything that you wanna add about that?
No, I just appreciate your patience and time that you spent working with me and the staff to get the information you needed. Just definitely took some time.
Yeah, no problem.
Jerry, can I ask you a question? The company you hired to basically do the books, do you believe that that will address, I mean, other than the over expenditure, that should address the other three issues,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, our accounting in-house will be much better moving forward, and the audit should be coming much sooner than it has. 'Cause Mark will do the financial statements and hand it to Jen and the Bo, and then she'll come in for a couple weeks, do her, or a week, and pull her stuff, and so we should have this information to, I would think, to do the 2024 budget. We'll have, where we didn't really have it before, it makes a difference.
Mhm.
But yeah, Mark will, the financial company will help us tremendously with this. Would you agree with that? I mean,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. I would anticipate that some of those, comments, the material weaknesses and the significant deficiencies, a lot of those would be addressed,
Yeah.
so. I would hope they would go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be doing pretty good.
I wasn't sure that she was aware of what was going on, but,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you should be, but I should have
Or
assumed you
Mark.
were, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know Mark, you and Mark have been talking about
Yes.
this.
Yep, yep, I already provided him some of the work papers that we used for the 2022 audit, so we've already been in communication, so.
So yeah, we'll be in shape.
So, I mean, those were here last year. It'd be nice to to make a few changes every once in a while.
I think they've been
Positive-
every year. so-
Positive changes, yeah.
For as long as I can remember.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, they should change.
Small office
It
staff,
is
I
a
should
small,
say.
yeah.
exactly. And it's not the only town.
No.
It's a small office that uses these sorts of things, so, but we'll get there.
Any other questions? Jonathan, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
Because I like how it outlines how we basically run on fumes.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I
yeah.
thought.
I was
Mike.
gonna
You're
figure
right
out
down
an
the
appropriate
head.
time to say that.
Yeah, I don't remember, it's been probably a year or two since last time we had to have a tan. We've been able to massage that a little bit
Yeah.
with the help of the RSU, giving us a little bit more time on the town tax commitment, et cetera. So we've been able to work with the community per se to stretch those fumes so we don't actually get burned and run out. So
Yeah.
it has been
Pretty
somewhat of a
tight, seems like
blessing.
pretty tight cash.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
tans are expensive. I mean, they don't give them to you for free, and, it's been nice that the community over the years has, worked with us.
Yeah.
You're definitely heading in the right direction.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you start with the positive and not the negative?
All right. Okay, next order of business, Jerry, efficiency main grant lighting
All right.
discussion.
Yeah. let's
And a
look
bunch
at
of
that.
paperwork I saw floating around.
Yeah, so let's get organized for that. There's a book
Okay,
cover
yeah.
here.
This right here.
Yeah, there's four of them. All right, so let me just give you the rundown. So how the sufficiency main grant worked was, you applied through a grant with State of Maine, Efficiency Maine, and you get you gotta use one of their qualified contractors if you're gonna do it. So I got in touch with Enterprise Electrical there in Lisbon, and a guy by the name of Don Rosignol came by, and what he did, what I asked him to do was just to look at 4 buildings: the town office, Eureka, fire station, and Public Works. And I said, just give me an estimate on what it's gonna cost to switch over to LED in this program. So he did his audit. So you have those in front of you. You have 4 of them. So you've got his work estimate. This is Efficiency Main, this is Enterprise Electric's work estimate to do the job, okay? So that's important to look at. All right, and then I've given you a summary of what the cost is to do this if you choose to go this route, all right? So that's important. So basically what happens is he does his audit, and he submits it to Efficiency Maine, and then Efficiency Maine does their little calculations. And the biggest calculation difference that you're gonna see is what Efficiency Maine, on that back page right here on all of them, the biggest difference is gonna be the labor cost, because what happens is you got someone from Efficiency Maine estimating what it's gonna cost to do the lights. Well, they're not electricians, okay? So you have to look at the worksheet, because they're very different. They're very different. So what we're gonna use from Efficiency Maine is the incentive that we're getting back. All right, so look at the summary, because you've got 4 sheets. Look at this summary. This is what you need to be looking at. So the town office, to retrofit all the lights here and outside, the total project cost estimate for the town office is $18,323. The estimated incentive that we're gonna get back is $3,036. So the total cost to the town is $15,287. The annual estimated energy cost savings is $1,770. So by switching over, that's what they're estimating we're gonna save in lighting cost.
That's just based on,
Kilowatt
lights
hours.
turned, kilowatt hours,
Yep.
strictly kilowatt hours.
Yep. By switching over to LED
Do
lights.
they take into account shutting off, buildings, or is it just 24 hours?
No,
on?
this is basically switching over from one light to
One
the
light bulb
next.
to another.
Operating as
Yeah,
is, just with more
Operating,
efficient
that's fine.
fixtures.
Okay, just wanna make sure we're all,
Yeah, and it's like, they estimate like a 36 cent a kilowatt for the whole incentive. So you can look at all of these things, but it's all summarized right here in this sheet
Yep.
for you,
Jerry, I just had a quick question.
okay?
So when it's talking about the estimated savings and estimated use, did they tell you what factor they use to accommodate for increased electrical prices moving forward?
No, I didn't
No,
get
I
into
w-
any
yeah.
of that. I just wanted to know what the.
No, I was just curious, yeah.
It's kind of irrelevant.
Well, yes and no, because if prices go up faster than they anticipated, your return on investment decreases because your savings is multiplied in the future.
Not necessarily, 'cause
Yeah.
if you run the same light, it's gonna decrease
But if
also.
it costs more money to use it, because kilowatt hour expenses are going
Kilowatt
up,
hours is gonna get rid of it.
well, the price of per kilowatt hour, so if it's costing you 20 cents and then next year it goes up to 60 cents, you're now getting even more savings if it's not a linear increase in expected costs.
So it's all laid out.
Mhm.
The last one, I did it just for the whole town. So the total project is $73,547 to do all 4 buildings. The incentive we get back is $12,600. Total estimated cost is $60,800 to do the whole town, with an annual estimated savings per year of $7,400 in electricity costs. So that's these are all estimated. So we just have to decide if this is something you wanna do, and I'll need action tonight, cause if we don't sign this for them tomorrow, so the application had to be in by August 31st. We got it in, they got it back, needs to be signed, for them tomorrow, and the project has to be completed by February 28th.
I don't see how it's a capital improvement. How does that work, Jerry?
Where's the money come from?
Yeah.
The only place you can take it from is capital.
That's what I mean, it's a capital improvement with
Right.
a CIP in place. How do
So
we-
you could,
How do we navigate this without bypassing the CIP?
because you have the authority just to authorize to spend money out of capital without going through CIP, because it's already in capital. You already have the funds in capital.
Do we have a capital today?
Well, depending on what fund you're looking at, if you're looking at the municipal capital, you got 90,000. If you're looking at public works, he's got, this move, because I just gotta say, but he's got 310.
So you're talking about the
reserve
capital
accounts.
reserve accounts that are in place right now
Right.
for public works,
Yep,
town hall, or whatever other
Municipal.
capital municipal
fire,
items we set aside last
Right.
year at town meeting.
Or-
And added to the pool that may have already been there.
right. So, yeah, these are your capital reserve balances. So the only way you can fund this, if that's what you choose to do, is through this capital. Otherwise, you can't, there's no money out there to do it.
Or it goes into CIP to ask for capital raising for next year, we have to go through this process all
No,
over again.
this is a grand opportunity, it ended August 31st.
It's now or never.
Yeah. I mean, you could take a chance and maybe they'll do it again someday, or maybe not, I don't have that crystal.
Are we now over the population limit that was?
No,
Is it this one? that was-
5,000.
Oh, 5,000.
This was for towns, population of 5,000 or less.
Terry, how many years has that been going on?
I've only known about Efficiency Maine since I've been here.
I just ask, because every time I've ever remodeled a building or remodeled a restaurant, if I update to LEDs and so forth, I get a check back from Efficiency Maine, we fill out a quick form, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what the difference is between private sector and
Right.
municipality, but it's definitely a thing that's occurred over
Yeah.
many years.
I'm not sure, but I know that they had this grant, again, deadline to apply was August 31st, deadline to finish the project is February 28th.
Do we need a motion to go into discussion, Joe?
If you'd like to make a motion, we can go.
Yeah, so
further.
I'll make a motion, we go forward with the expenditure to improve the efficiency of our lighting on all four buildings.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, Joe seconds for discussion. All right, open for discussion further, what are we thinking?
I mean, my thought is, I think it's really, obviously very easy operating municipalities to think about the short term, because that's where expenditures are felt right up front. But I think that if we're thinking about building cost savings in the future, that there's benefits to taking advantage of grant opportunities, especially if they're limited in their time and potentially limited in scope, you know, threshold of a certain amount of people in town, that can change. We've talked a lot about growing communities and stuff like that. So I think it'd be wise to consider this, so we can capture some of those grant dollars. The way I think of grants is, it's all coming from either a state or federal agency. Everyone already paid the taxes to generate those funds, so the more you can bring back into your own community, the better. And with increasing electrical costs, I think it's a good idea to do what we can to save on electricity. And in my experience, labor costs for work like this never go down. So evaluating it next year, the year after, I don't see it becoming a cheaper option.
So, if the labor cost goes up, will our incentive also go up?
The incentive stays the same.
And that's my experience with a lot of grants, is that the incentive changes a lot slower than labor costs. So where your incentive might be designed to cover, let's say 25%, if labor's going up, they're not immediately adjusting those incentives to match the increase in labor costs, so.
I think over the years, we've had many quote-unquote grants, whether it be federal, state, et cetera. Some have been 50% matches, some have been just acceptable, et cetera. But I've never seen one this is a fairly large amount of money. So almost every time, whether it's a new bridge or something of that nature, we have planned ahead and brought it to the town and let them make a decision. If this was $9,000, no problem. But this is a lot of money. And the fact that we're not even consulting CIP on this, or the committee, excuse me, it wouldn't sit right with me.
To counter that, I know often we've heard from previous iterations of the board too, that we are elected to make decisions that need to be made in timely manners. So like, this is our role there to capture these sorts of things.
How long has the grant been available?
I'm not sure, but it sounds like
It's not really a timely manner when you're under the gun.
well, that, I mean, by definition, under the gun is timely.
Well, by definition, we're actually past what.
Right, so
So,
that's why I'm saying
That's fine.
these opportunities, I mean, we don't have the opportunity to say, let's vote on this in April, because then the grant's gone.
He can't say that without 100%
He said that
certainty.
this grant is expired, we can hope that it gets re-upped.
Efficiency Main's been around for a while.
And Efficiency Maine offers a lot of different grants throughout.
Joe, I get that,
Yeah.
I get that. The fact of the matter is, look at the dollar amount. We don't even have any consultation of where these funds should be taken from the CIP, from the committee.
Wouldn't it fall under?
But that's not really their role, is it? Isn't it their role is just to rank the projects and the fund?
No, we also look at where the money is actually going to come from, although we didn't consider ARPA in our decision-making this past year. But it is our role to look to make sure that when we, I'll say, grant approval or our recommendation that there's monies available, that it makes sense from a monetary perspective. Granted, we're not setting the budget.
Right,
You know, what we're looking at the schedule, looking at all the projects. So this is another project to me, right, on the being CIP. you know,
Yeah.
It's put on CIP, this would be project number 5, right? We got 5 other projects. Which one has the higher ranking? Does this rank? Do we save $12,668 on this project, but yet we're gonna save $100,000 on another project that comes to us at the same time? That one's worth more, it's gonna rate more, so when it comes time to voting, this may not get voted in because it's only, you know, a small amount of savings versus a large amount on the next project. So I'm having a little problem with the overall cost. I agree with Rich in some regards that this was a smaller number. It might be easier to swallow. You know, I'm trying to justify it in my mind on whether, you know, taking 11,500 from the public work, taking from all the separate accounts, is that a big thing overall? No, but the larger number is the problem.
Yeah, that's up to
Right?
you.
know, you're talking about converting the whole place over to LED, and I agree, it's a savings, it's a 17% or whatever,
18%,
yeah,
yeah.
whatever, yeah. And so, yeah, I'm having a little bit of a problem just jumping over the,
Just
over
keep
the
in
edge
mind,
here.
just keep in mind when the budget, when they rank the project, we don't even know what we're gonna put in the, for capital until the operating budget is done. Then whatever's left, you sort of, you go down and you pick 1, 2, or 3, and if 3 puts you over budget, you're only with 2, so.
Right,
So that gets done at the select board level, not at the CIP.
but we would.
But ultimately,
not getting
CIP is advisory, so the
Yeah,
select
we're
board
advisory. It
can
becomes a-
disagree.
Right, we can, I mean, but,
And we have.
Yeah.
yeah, and we have mixed them up, yep,
Mhm.
and that's okay, that's part of the
So-
process.
So Jerry, with that, by that rationale, what would be your suggestion for us to pay for this? And how would you divide it?
I would take each building, I would take fire out of fire capital, I'd take public works out of public works capital, and I would take the Eureka Town Hall out of the municipal capital.
And I know sometimes it's hard to forecast, but would that damper anything of what any of your project, excuse me, your department's head have maybe forecasted that money for going into next year?
No,
Nothing.
nothing,
And-
nothing.
And so,
Um,
oh, sorry, John.
Like I said, I'll just give you the numbers. So fire has 134,306 in it right now. He's looking to put money in reserve, and he's looking for 25,000 for some computer-aided stuff, so it's not gonna.
The-
You know,
I'm gonna interrupt, because this is going to where my comment was going to be. I think this is an important issue, and the money saving, I mean, this talks about, you know, if everything stays the way it is, 8.22 years, and it'll be paid off in savings, which is significant. My issue is, as a town, we have historically not put money into these capital reserve accounts. That is costing us money every year we pay interest on these projects. Last year, I advocated for putting money into the capital reserve accounts, it got shut down. You know, people complain about their taxes, but we're paying interest instead of putting money in, and the interest is costing us money in the long run. And if these were public safety issues, I would be all over it, and I would tell Rich and Joe, I understand what you're saying, but this is public safety, and it has to be done.
Would be a different discussion.
I think it could be, I would almost consider it public safety for this building, because, I mean, look outside, it's almost pitch black. It's not safe. You come here in the middle of the night, and, you know, you're gonna miss a turn because there's no lights out.
same with Eureka.
Right.
Where a lot
But-
of people meet.
Elections definitely got cited on that when we did the inspection with this federal government.
My issue is, this is, without knowing more, I feel like I need to know more. I need to know what the expected expenditures are next year, what we're looking for. You know, what the capital, I don't have the, I don't remember off the top of my head.
And that's fine, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. Don't, you're not gonna, you say, no, we ain't doing this, you're not hurting mine. I'm just bringing you a grand opportunity for you to either say, yeah, let's do it or not. We rock on either way.
I'm not saying I would say no to it, I'm just saying historically, per Paul's was over 5,000 or something like that. These things are usually reviewed. I wasn't expecting, quite frankly, that big of a number.
No.
I think that's where, when I saw that number, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good sized number to make a town commitment on in terms of, without knowing what the future projects are. You know, when money wasn't saved in the past, we were floating 2% interest rates, 3% interest rates, things like that, but now that we're creeping into the 8, 9, 10, 11, depending on what we're borrowing for, it's a completely different ballgame, and capital is, cash is always king, then so now it's even more so.
And so, I mean, would you consider any of these, I mean, hearing about the election issue and
I mean, I'm gonna be in November out here at midnight in the pitch black, unloading ballot boxes and ballots.
because when I was looking at it, I will admit that those were the two, I mean, I don't think the fire station or public works garage are public safety issues. I wish they were here to tell me I was wrong, or I'm not wrong, whatever. But, you know, the Eureka Center, maybe because there is public there.
Rent that out.
This is, I think this is more of a grant for efficiency than anything. Saving $7,400 a year in electric bills.
Yeah.
If you don't save that now, you're not ever gonna save it. Matter of fact, you probably spend more, and it's because electricity costs keeps going. So,
Well, that was my point,
so,
Jerry.
you're right, so it's just more of, do you wanna run more efficient or not? I guess that's the bottom line. And I don't control the timing of the grant or any of that, so,
I think everybody wants to run more efficient, I think that's kind of
Well, and I
a
think
weird way to put it.
I think a bird in the hand's better than two in the bush. Like, we know that this is a time that this can be done at 18% discount. And yes, Efficiency Maine has been around for a long time. Sometimes they've done rebates on things that they don't do rebates on anymore, and vice versa, so we don't know that that's gonna be there next year. We can hope that maybe we could also say, well, let's hold off for 3 years, cause maybe they'll do 100% reimbursement in the future. Just based on my experience, electricity goes up, at least over the last 5 years, has increased annually a lot more than expected. And if we have a set kilowatt hours that we're utilizing, and we use we use these LEDs, we're using less electricity, even if that per unit price of electricity increases 10, 15, 20%, that's just increasing our return on investment.
I don't know if anybody thinks that this is not good.
And so, I'm not saying, I mean, it's
I think
gonna
it's just a
save us
matter of
money.
the amount of money and
Yeah.
how we do it without, typically, unless it's an emergent situation, we don't
Yeah.
bypass the town.
And then I think
And the
that
committees that
the
set
added
forth.
benefit, not just of the decrease in electrical use, but the added benefit of increased lighting, like we said out here, like we said with the election, is just builds a stronger case for it. I understand it's $60,000, it's not nothing. You know, we need to be smart on our expenditures, but if we have it available, and it sounds like Jerry's saying that it doesn't sound like it would have a major impact on the, capital funds for each department, if it came out of there, I think it's a wise use of dollars.
So, this doesn't go out for bid, so what if it went,
No.
I mean, if it went out for bid,
Well, you
would
gotta
we
use,
get a price at $50,000
well,
from
you
another
can't,
vendor?
because this, you have to do it
Well,
with
no, if I forget the
a
grant.
qualified,
If I-
you have to use Efficiency Maine's qualified contractor.
Right, but if I go out for bid and just get a quote for somebody to switch us over to LED, what's the price? Without the grant, forget the grant.
Well, I'm assuming he's, if
Is
it's.
it gonna come in under, or,
If it's a competitive electrician market out there,
That's
I'm
right.
assuming it's gonna be
it just
somewhat the same.
seems funny that you had to go to one of their qualified people, but.
That's how most.
Yeah, that's how it
They're
works.
virtually all grants.
It is how it works, but there are
Yeah.
more than just one
One,
qualified
Right.
person.
Right.
There is, but that was my point with the 5,000. Typically, anything over that amount, we have to have multiple bids, blah, blah, blah. You know the rules better than I
Right.
know, Jerry.
I mean, Pownell tried to do it, they couldn't even get anybody to come do their audit.
Didn't call these guys.
So again, I'm just doing the work and I'm the messenger, I'm just giving you the information. That's, you guys have a tougher job than I do, really. I mean, you
No.
gotta,
I wouldn't say that.
well,
So if this, my question then for you, Jerry, and you kinda answered it earlier then, is what, if we're taking the $60,000 and spending it, and you're saying where we're taking it from, it's not gonna have an impact on those department heads' plans for next year. It sounds like whether we take it or not, barring any sort of emergency, none of those departments are trying to access these funds next year.
oh yeah, they'll be coming
For,
up
or
with some
for
of
other,
these funds.
or enough
Yeah,
to enough to make it so that they'd have to make those choices about this or that.
no, they're gonna put their request in for
Mhm.
what, based on their equipment schedules.
Are those readily available?
Are they readily available?
Yeah, I thought some of those were
Available?
laid out.
Yeah, they are,
Is that something,
but
We could
they
look at
haven't been
before.
run through the capital committee. So it's, if it's a timing thing and a money thing, I don't know, this is a decision for the board. It's an opportunity to save on your,
what is your
Like just-
suggestion?
I would do it, because it's like Joe said, it's not gonna get any cheaper, any.
No question, but could you just give us an outline of how you would do it? Like, how you would disseminate, would you take it out of each
I think you said
individual's
Yeah.
capital
Yeah,
and go from there and just say, hey, we're gonna decrease these numbers,
Ju-
irregardless if we think that capital fund might be underfunded at the current time? I'm not saying any of them are, I'm just asking.
underfunded for what?
Well, we don't know, that's the problem.
Anything
Rainy
coming
day,
up.
whatever
Well, right.
comes up next, right?
Yeah.
But then I don't know
The truck,
either.
the truck's going in for.
Right.
I can't-
Yeah, but
windshield
at
and-
the same point, you
Your
can
crystal
come up,
ball is as good as mine on that, I don't know.
at the same point, you can come up with anything that you wanna spend capital on, so any of those departments could say, I want a new truck, I want a new building, I want a new whatever, so it's like,
And it gets vetted.
easily, it could be added, right? So I'm just thinking that,
Right, I mean, if you wanna treat this as like a capital project, you gotta put it to bed, there's no time for it, you just can't do it.
If it's not an emergency, how do you not treat it as a capital project is my biggest question.
It's not an emergency.
So, that's what I'm
Just like-
asking.
just like
So
you-
how do you not treat it as a capital project?
You have to treat it as a cat, just like you would the shingles on the Union Church.
Shingles on the Union Church, you can make an argument, it's an emergency if they're falling off and there's leaking
Well,
and so
so
forth.
it seems to me just last meeting, we got shown that there was plenty of times where the board's spent money without going through the whole process, and that we have that authority
You
too.
just
So
explain why.
whether we have that, well, no, it's not laid out that we can only spend the money if it's a life safety issue. We clarified that last
Yeah,
meeting.
no, that's fine, that's not the point, it's just we have all these measures in place for capital. If we're saying this is simply just a capital purchase, we're bypassing the system that's put in place, that's all I'm saying.
Well,
Are we
you're
bypassing,
bypassing it to take advantage of the grant.
and we have, it
If you
sounds like
don't
we
wanna
have
take
the
advantage
authority
of
to
the grant,
bypass it.
then don't pull the trigger. It really comes down to that.
I wish it was just that simple. I'd love to take it, I mean, that's just a bad way to put it. We'd all would love to take, we're just asking, is it doing the right thing? Since there's not, it is a capital project and it's not an emergent situation where the
Right.
town didn't vet it, the boards didn't vet it, et cetera. That's all I'm asking.
I mean, you can vet it through the capital project, you just won't get the incentive for the grant. That's all. You can do it that way.
No, I get that.
And my understanding is, from what Jerry's saying, is we totally have the authority to do this, and what you're saying is
We're
that.
saying, we have the
I
authority,
agree we
Joe.
have
Nobody's
the,
arguing that.
right, so let me finish, please. And you're saying, I agree we have the authority, but I just don't think it's different than the process we normally follow, is what you're saying.
It is different than the process that's
Right.
normally followed.
And so then Jerry's saying, well, that's in part because this is a limited time opportunity. So I guess the question isn't, are we allowed to do this or not? It's, do we want to do this?
Correct.
So, and that's where I'm just advocating, I think we should do
But
it.
Joe, with also, I also like when you operate on something like this, I like everything that passed the straight face test. Meaning, hey, we did this because, hey, we had 9 lights out, and it was this, and it was that, and it was a public safety issue. This is more of, we're defining it as just capital improvements.
It's a cost-saving measure. So we're running a tight budget, we talked about we have limited cash flow, this helps decrease the
Get that.
expenditure.
Joe, we get on it.
Right, but what I'm saying is that there's more than just, oh, this is just a project we wanna do. It's improving our buildings, it's improving our
What do we
efficiency,
do
it's
that's a capital
increasing our
improvement that doesn't
lighting,
improve something?
it's saving money, it's a emerging grant opportunity.
What do we do
so-
that's a capital improvement that doesn't improve something?
Right, and that's my point, so saying that it has to pass some other threshold in order to be approved now, doesn't seem like that passes the straight face test as much to me.
It's a capital improvement, no matter how you look at it.
Right, and I'm saying, I think we should do it,
Okay.
because of the cost savings. And it also improves the lighting and things of that nature, helps us more with the voting booth and all that, so I think that there's plenty of merit to it.
Motion on the table. Any other discussion?
Can we, I have a question, just,
Yes, John.
and my guess is you're not gonna know, Jerry, but I'm gonna ask you. These outdoor wall packs at the Eureka Center, it says there's 3 of them.
On the building, yeah, okay.
Are those the ones that are already there
They go on the building. Shine down
on the outside?
yeah.
Are they already
No,
existing?
they're not there.
They be new?
Yeah, they're gonna have to run their electricity up the wall to do it.
I think, I'm sorry if I was wrong. No, I was just gonna say, I'd be comfortable, find a happy medium. It still doesn't really hold to what I was trying to say, but, you know, if we maybe did some of it to take advantage of it in terms of the town hall and the community center, you know, then you're looking at $25,000. Or excuse me, 42,000 versus the out of pocket and then reimbursed.
No, 29.
The fire
Right.
station. Yeah, the fire station.
Plus
Okay, just make sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Don't confuse me.
No, you're 100% right. So let's just call it 10,000 out of the community center and 18,000 out of town hall. So,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So call 30,000.
So it's a reimbursement.
Right.
So we'll have to pay it all up front, and then once they
Right.
get the invoices and if that we paid, then we get the incentive back.
Yeah, after the incentive, we'd be at about 25,000.
That's correct.
We would take on the
Yes.
improvements.
And you said we're adding lights to the Eureka Center?
Outside.
Yes,
So-
from a public safety
Yeah.
standpoint, we could definitely, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with this one.
Yeah.
I can't really speak for the fire station because
Well, it's-
they turn the lights on and it looks like Christmas over there.
Yeah.
So the amount of savings for each of these items is not equally distributed, it's not 17% across the board. So if you look at the amount that we're getting reimbursed for the fire station versus what we're getting reimbursed proportionally for the town hall, it seems like a couple of these bigger ticket items could potentially actually be a larger proportional savings. So that's just something to keep in mind. Do we want to spend more and save proportionally more, or spend less and save proportionally less? I'm just looking at the numbers, I could have done my math wrong.
No, I think you're right. It's probably because of the usage, right?
Well, it probably has to do with the nature of the grant. If there's new features, they might reimburse at a higher rate versus
Right.
old, just replacing old features.
And have you spoken with the chief or Calvin about
Yeah.
these?
They were there when we did the audit.
And what were their thoughts?
They're all about efficiency, running less expensive.
I mean, what I'm hearing is we have an opportunity to save money. Our department heads are supportive of it. Our town staff is supportive of it. And it sounds like we have the capital available. So to me, it seems like, I understand that there's a preferred system, but in order to capture these cost savings for a long-term benefit, that will probably see an increased ROI anyways because of increasing electricity costs. I think it's just important to capture as much of that savings as we can when we can. That's my opinion.
And so some of these, like, I'm looking at this section B, the summary of project financials as it relates to the fire department. That says the total project cost is $11,750. But we have listed $31,000.
Yeah, is that the sheet, cause he was saying
Yeah,
that this is for efficiency
You
management.
can't go with efficiency man, because a bureaucrat.
Oh, those are efficiency management.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those, the project
Okay,
cost estimate, you can't go with efficiency man, you've gotta go with the guy on the electrician's estimate.
Mhm.
I mean, you got a
Yeah.
bureaucrat, the bureaucrat in the state doesn't know if he needs a 6-foot step ladder or a bucket truck, to do what he's gonna do, so they're just,
In my experience with these sorts of grants, someone who's an accountant somewhere comes up with what they think is the magical number that this thing should cost.
it would.
And then the contractor says, no way, you know.
Because if you just look at the efficiency main numbers, it's a no-brainer. So I'm like, wow, this is like awesome. So then when I talk to the electrician, he says, no, you can't go with that. I'll give you the estimate of what it's gonna cost. So he does the estimate to change out the lights. Efficiency main does the estimate for the incentive. And they work together.
Oh, I get it.
I mean, he's the one that gave all the information to efficiency
I
main.
figured the percentages.
I don't have anything to do with it.
Don't have a
Do they
paper.
recalculate after they give the, so these are done prior to him going there and assessing? Do they recalculate after he provides his assessment?
No, he fills out this
Right.
incredible spreadsheet with all the information and sends it to efficiency main, and they evaluate that and come up with their incentive.
I would bet that efficiency main has a set number for each one of these line items that they included, so a LED pole mounted street light, 100 watt to 250 watt, they're saying if we get two, they'll give us $988. I bet you that's a set number at, you know, whatever that is divided by two. I bet you they don't have it based off of a percentage. All I know is in my personal experience, I installed an electrical project, solar on my roof to save money, and electricity costs went up so much that return on investment went from like 12 years to 9 years in a matter of a year. So,
We should have some solar farms.
Rooftop.
Any other thoughts? Motion on the table. to Approve this efficiency main estimate. For, grant lighting, efficiency main grant for lighting. Town hall, fire station, community center, public works.
Keep in mind, it is an estimate,
Yep.
not a quote, that's gonna be exactly that when the final bill comes in. Could be less, could be more. I'd probably tend to go the latter.
More?
Don't most estimates come in?
No, it's usually a bid, that's one of the problems that we have with this.
Well, not really, because I mean, if he rips into that Eureka wall and there's another problem, we're gonna have to fix it. I mean, that's what happens when you start doing those sorts of things. So I just wanted to put out, it's an estimate, and I don't want anyone to think that I said that that was exactly going to be the price.
I get what you're saying, but we traditionally operate
Right.
on bids that aren't as ambiguous as, well, it could go from X to Y.
Well, right, but this really is a bid by a qualified
I'm not saying it's
contractor.
not a bid.
Right.
I'm
So
just
have our
saying-
like with the, let's say the Union Church, those estimates came out to the exact dollar amount of what they submitted regardless of what they found when they were doing it, so you pull up the flooring and you realize you need new subfloor, we just said, no.
There's work
Put
orders,
over it.
and there'll be a change of work.
Right, when that's the same difference, if you have an estimate, you gotta submit a work order change,
Joe,
it's,
the problem here is typically when you have an order this big with the town, in terms of the town policy, it has to go up to bid.
is that a policy or a practice?
It's a policy.
Because it sounds like sometimes we're referring to practice.
I'm not
practices
referring to
versus
practice,
policies.
just listen to what I'm saying, if it's over X amount of dollars for policy, it's supposed to go up to bid.
Well, then, but if Jerry's telling us we are allowed to vote to
You
distribute
can go
these
whatever
funds.
you want, I'm just telling you, that's an actual policy.
So, that begs your previous question though, because Jerry's telling us that we are allowed to expend these, and you're saying
You
that
are.
would violate our policy.
You are allowed.
But you're saying that if we vote for it now, it would violate our policy.
Jerry, what's the policy? Pull it up.
There really is no policy. We're operating under the Title 38
State
town
guideline.
manager. Right. So when the voters vote to put money in capital, you are the trustees of that money. So you can authorize that money in a meeting like this all day long. When there's been big purchases like a truck, you have gone to town meeting and got a vote. That's what you do. Technically, you don't have to do that.
But we also send out the bid, do we not?
Right, but in a normal, if this was a project like like we weren't going after the grant, we would go up to bid. But in order to get the grant money and the incentives, you gotta go with one of their qualified contractors.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, I don't think it's an issue, I think Jerry's correct. I think the issue comes down to, do we think this is a good use of capital funds or not?
Right.
And to me, it's a good use, is the timing with the information right, for me is an issue.
What sort of additional information would you want?
Well, I'd like to know, what other funds are going to be expended, or sought to be expended, where that's gonna leave us, what the, capital improvement plan, I know, I think we're done paying the fire truck after this year or next year.
I'd have to look at the
It's-
schedule,
or
but I
some-
don't have it memorized.
There's some, like,
I believe
the quint, it's like $700 something thousand is coming off. What's the next?
I can go get the thing I don't think it's that much, but we are getting, one is falling off. I don't have it memorized, but I can go get it if you'd like.
And when are we, when are we looking at the next purchase? To me, and I think I've made this clear for a long time, I think that, we need to put money in these capital accounts partially for things like this, but also because putting money there is going to save us, from having to borrow. And when we borrow, we pay this money and the interest, and it's costing us money by not paying it up front.
Right,
And-
and I
and so-
understand that.
So those are concerns I have.
But if the money is put there for us to help make these expenditures and we're met with an opportunity where we can make an improvement at a 18% discount, I think that that's where partly we come in and say, okay, this is something that we can always benefit from, we might always wanna do, we're always looking to decrease costs, and this is a time where we can do it steeply discounted, and we don't know what the future's gonna look like.
Except we don't know that it's an 18% discount, because what if something happens, right? And this
You
is.
just say that
this
with
is an
any
estimate.
capital improvement project.
Except,
If you pull the roof off Eureka and it's severely water damaged and you now gotta replace all the wood underneath before you put the roof back, you can run into the same thing.
I'm not arguing with you, but.
And I think that this has a better chance of being close to budget if some of it's just replacing existing features versus a project that's tearing something completely apart and bringing it down to bones and then building back. So I just think, I understand your concerns, but I think that this is a wise use because of those concerns.
There's all kinds of philosophical reasons we can get into, right? I think, and I agree with you, putting money into reserves is a fantastic idea. And I think in part, so you have them there to take advantage of situations like this. If you didn't have them, you wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. So I don't know if that was the philosophical of the board of why you have reserves, or you're building money to buy things. I don't know.
It is that, it's to
Right.
get out of borrowing in the near future, but, you know, it depends obviously on market timing. You know,
Right.
you don't know what interest rates are gonna be. In the past, it's not good to tax people to get a bunch of money that's gonna sit in an account and make half a point. Nowadays, when you're making 5-6% on some of these accounts,
Yeah. It's a tough decision. It's like, do you wanna take advantage of it or not, or roll the dice and maybe it comes up again? I mean, those are things,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think hindsight, if like, we could have sent maybe this estimate out to the budget committee and the CIP committee, and they just said, you know, yeah, this seems like a genius idea, or whatever, then I know, but it's, I get it.
Yeah.
You need to streamline the process, I get it, it's just,
Well, you're dependent on other contractors to do their work, get it back to me, work with efficiency. I mean,
well, just the opinion on what that's all.
yeah.
So at least
But
we can,
we just,
I get it.
just, yeah, I've been on this for 4 or 5 months, but to get the people to move and do their job and get it back and give it to efficiency main, it's,
no, Jerry, I'm not faulting you one iota, it's just, you know, it's just like the project we just finished, right? I mean, you got a huge, I mean, usually when they do grant projects, there's some in excess of 50% of the coverage being cost. And we still, even though we have the money in the coffers, we still approach the town with it.
yeah.
Can we move the question?
If you move the question, we have to vote on moving the question. We could just go into a vote.
If we just call it a question.
Yeah, I was gonna call the question.
Technically, Robert's rules, if you call the question, you have to vote on calling the question, but I don't think we have any more conversation, so.
Right? We have a motion on the table here to approve the work estimate in front of us from Enterprise Electric for taking advantage of the efficiency main lighting at the Town Hall, Fire Station, Community Center, and Public Works for a total of $73,547 with a grant payback from efficiency main of $12,688. Out of pocket for the town would be $60,859. And I had Joe make that motion, and Josh seconded it.
I would amend that motion to say, because out of pocket it's 73 and then we're reimbursed, so it's not just moving to approve 60,000. So I would say, I would amend the motion to say to approve 73,547, knowing that 12,600.
Yeah, I was just reading off the page, but.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. So, I got a motion on the table to expend $73,547 with rebate from efficiency main of $12,688, which would leave an out of pocket, total of $60,859 for the town. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is tied, does not carry.
All right.
All right,
Is there any appetite to discuss going with one of them, if not all of them?
I was gonna say, I do have an appetite to discuss, you know, I do think, you know, for example, you know, the fire station, granted, that might not be the biggest need,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely, from a percentage standpoint, the biggest return.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these are, you know, not
the other,
even 10%.
town hall is 16.5% return, and fire station is 20%, a little change. Community center is 13.5%, public works was 12% return.
What's the ROI on those then? So fire station, 6 years, and then public, 11. I mean, my thought process is if we don't have the appetite to approve all of it, to not only look at the percentage rates, but also use by the public, so we know that we have elections over at Eureka, we know that the lighting's an issue, we know that it's about pitch black out here, so I would advocate at that point, maybe looking at the town hall in Eureka is if we're only gonna approve 2.
I see, I was originally on that, but I mean, looking at the actual cost savings as far as
Mhm.
the actual going to the public and saying, hey, we did this because from the fire perspective, you know, it's a $31,000 job, and I'm gonna say 6,500. With a community center, you know, it's a $10,000 or 10,008, I'm gonna say $1,400.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, I'm for all of them. But where I'm, say, if we're worried about appeasing the community, there could be more appetite for a project that more members of the community may feel that they directly benefit from. So you have a lot of people using Eureka for scouts and voting and things of that nature. So that's why we're just in a discussion here, so that's where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
no, I get what you're saying, I mean, it's.
But I'd gladly vote on it all again if you wanna vote from home.
No, it's hard to justify, I mean, like, some of these things, like $10,000, could you add $3,000 worth of lighting to the Eureka Center and make it look nice and bright over there? Could you change some light bulbs out here instead of these pink ones to some white ones and make it nice and bright out here? I mean, there's all kinds of things. If you're gonna add poles, what does that trigger? I mean,
I guess
you're gonna do a lighting design, you're gonna do everything, I mean.
well, that's outside the scope of
Right.
this. And I guess the other thing, I'm operating under the assumption that the contractor would wanna come back for a subset of this. If we're on a list of towns that have other larger projects and we're saying, yeah, come back and do half of it, we're not necessarily even sure that they'll say it's worth it for them
So-
at that point.
So, the thing I have about the Eureka Center is that I thought we were gonna have a little more assessment of using that on a more permanent basis. Might be more advantageous to look at that when we actually maybe do some other upgrades to that building if we need to. So, I mean,
Do you think that when those other upgrades take place,
What's that?
I'm asking, do you think when upgrades like that are gonna hit the table, we would be able to do that at a discounted rate? Like we can now?
I don't know. That's,
And that kinda goes back to my bird in the hand's better than two in the bush.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have an argument of being like, how do you know how severe the discount is when you get bird out the bid?
Oh, I think what Jerry was saying with the out to bid part is that you have to use a qualified contractor, so I guess in theory, could have asked multiple qualified contractors, but, sometimes the time is the limiting factor there.
Timing is everything in this business.
How long is the grant been?
I don't know, when I got here, I didn't worry about it when I was public works, but when I got here, I know there were some people that were hot on applying for it, and so I applied.
do I have another motion, or are we? done with the subject.
Yeah, I would move that we approve the community center and town hall, or ask the electrical contractor to consider that.
Second.
Second, but only do the town hall and the community center. Any further discussion?
They see my previous comments.
No, the only thing I would comment is the reason why, you know, just the savings isn't as significant as the other
Yeah.
9%.
It's more of a public safety issue
It's more
to
of
me.
a public safety.
That's, to me, this building, that building over, to me, it's public safety, and
Yeah.
especially in the winter.
And kind of to Rich's point, like, he says the fire station looks like it's lit up like a Christmas tree.
It
with
does.
lots of lights on.
Lots of lights.
And I just, I mean, I know how many nights a week I drive by that, and there are people from the community using it, and I've used it. It's poorly lit outside.
No question. As was this one.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? All right. That motion carries. Just doing the fire station and the public, no, I'm sorry, and the community center.
No.
Town hall, all right, town hall and community center.
Let the record
I had
show
the-
the
I had-
town
I had
hall and the community
I had the
center.
wrong one circled, sorry. They were out, not in. Okay.
If you're anything like me, by the time I've written notes down,
Yeah.
I can't even decipher the hieroglyphs.
All right. Good.
Okay,
Glad you were efficient. Board of Appeals alternate, unless you object, sorry, go to Board of Appeals
yeah,
alternate. Do we-
alternate, you guys all
Do we
set
have
with
any,
that?
and do we have any discussion on that? Or if we do, we have to go into executive session, but otherwise,
I'm
let
not,
me see.
I'm not gonna move that one.
Let me see, this is for alternate Byron Bud Philbrook III, 21 Sunset Lane, and an alternate for the Appeals Board, Board of Appeals. Retired.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I move that we appoint Mr. Philbrook to be an alternate on the Board of Appeals.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nice to see new names.
All right,
Yes, agreed.
thank you. All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Mr. Philbrook, thank you so much for joining the Appeals Board.
Yes, sign that, please.
Okay. Oh, it's all right. Thank you, sir. All right. Jerry, I think you're up again for the town manager's report,
All
sir.
right, we'll do the, we'll save the, best news for last. So you got the, letter, email that Lois has resigned from being the chair of the.
Yep.
So, when that happens and they can't choose a chair, there's one thing that, and it would happen even in this board, couldn't choose it, it goes by law. The clerk puts their names in a hat, draws out a name, and that's how the chair gets selected in that situation. So we can do that if that's what you folks wanna do. Otherwise, there's no chair, there's no meeting, if there's no meeting, there's no decisions.
Aren't there two vice chairs who will operate in place of the chair when the
They
chair's not
didn't wanna
available?
step up.
Well, I think,
Still the acting vice.
So I guess my question there is, what if one of the two people who doesn't want it gets their name drawn? Like, you're
well, none of them want it.
Right,
So,
none of them wanted it.
then my position coming in was that we do nothing, and that they found it important enough to step up and apply, to be on the board, to serve the board. If they can't step up and do it, then they should resign. Because
Okay.
clearly, we're not having new people apply. And if it's at a stalemate, then we'll have to figure out a way to, distribute the duties of that committee to another committee or committees.
Yeah, I'm with Josh on
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've got some decisions coming up in regards to at least one of the historic buildings in town. I'm not sure if any others have anything that we need to address right now, but I would, most of the structures or properties in town are under the auspice of ordinances. So having the ordinances updated to clearly define what we do with historic properties when they come before the planning board is very advantageous for us. I know that we talked about updating those ordinances, but that would be a route where, you update the ordinances, and if it's very clear to the general public of what to do with a property when it comes across as being upgraded and/or anything nearby, let's say, and that's a clear line as to what's going on with that property, then you don't really need an overarching body to govern that if the planning board has very clear direction via the ordinances. So I'm kind of there too, that if we, get folks to step up and do the work we've asked them to do. And I say task because the committees are tasked by the select board to do a job, right? There's a charter, and that needs to be followed. If it can't be followed, then yes, we pull back those responsibilities and divvy them up in a way that, we can judiciously manage historic properties in town according to either state statute or town statutes and ordinances, and leave it at that for now until a committee wants to be formed that wants to take that back over, part of that decision process. I don't think there's any ill will by anybody in regards to, we like the historic buildings, we think they need to be preserved. I think there's a lot that goes into historic properties that needs to be maintained. But everybody needs to step up to the plate.
So in other words, what you're suggesting is that if the committee doesn't want to step up and provide the chair, then until they do that, we'll distribute those duties to elsewhere throughout town?
Well, I don't know if we can distribute
We
them
don't-
without
It would be,
changing.
right,
Or
we'd have to change the ordinance.
or so more or less, if they're not gonna do their job, we gotta wait for them to do their job.
Realistically, they're making referrals to the code enforcement officer about violations.
Mhm.
They're supposed to, help raise money when people are trying to do those repairs.
Mhm.
So I'm asking George to come to the next meeting
Mhm.
and go over the ordinances that deal with the district and the commission.
Okay.
So you'll have more information on that.
Do they have a meeting prior to that?
Who?
The committee?
The commission,
The commission?
the committee.
Yeah.
Not that I have
Can they even
aware of.
call a meeting without a chair?
No, and that's my point, like, so as far as like an answer from us, I'd kinda like to hear what the planner has to say, and
Yeah.
specifically what the ordinance is.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep it moving, but with that said, if there is something that quote unquote, like a planning board would need direction from, would they just refer to the planner to get their
Yeah,
information?
yes.
So we can still function as a government and everybody, there's not gonna be subdivisions that are on hold because of these,
No.
this group's not, okay,
No.
then I think we can wait.
George is more than happy to come in, no, it's not.
Till we
gonna
talk to
hurt us.
George.
So what you're saying, like if someone's got something planned that's near or within the historic district that they would normally have to comment on, that would defer to George currently?
I don't
Well,
know.
George will
Well,
explain
That's why I
that
wanted
next
to-
week.
That's why I
Well,
wanna get
that's-
information.
Right, we
I didn't wanna like disband and say,
George.
hey, there's no
Yeah,
chair.
no,
Well,
Just
I
wait.
don't, we're not disbanding.
We're not you're right,
Yeah.
but you don't wanna say, hey, they can't operate until further notice.
This is,
But if they don't have a chair, how do they call a
we have the clerk-
meeting?
If we have the clerk appoint someone as chair, they don't wanna, they've all made it clear they don't wanna do it, according to that email. So what good, I don't wanna play games.
yeah, this is George Baileywick, he'll
Mhm.
give you the information.
I think that's the best way.
Yeah,
And
I
and
think
can you
so.
reach out and tell them what's going on and say, hey, can someone step up, please, till we can find a replacement? Someone who's willing to do it?
Because it just seems weird to draw a
It just-
name out of people who say they don't wanna do it. Like, you're gonna say, you're the chair now, you have to do it, like.
Say no.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
can't
like
say
we draw
no.
the next name, and then we draw the next name, and then
You
we're
can say
back to,
yes, but then you resign.
back to
from it.
square one.
Right.
Just send it out. This is what's happening unless someone steps up.
Well, I want you to hear from George first.
That's the.
Oh, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
And then, when you hear from George, and then
I-
then
yeah.
I'll take Not that I'm not taking direction, I just
No,
want you
no,
to
no.
hear it from the.
Yeah, so there's nothing pending, I mean,
Right,
there's
there's
nothing, no
nothing,
decision
yeah.
to make other than, we
Right.
just had a public discussion about the whole issue and
Mhm.
where we might go if, given that, having to make that decision. So, yeah, let's hear
George-
from George,
George will
and
have a
then,
plan.
and then if there's anything imminent that comes up in the meantime, then let us know, and we'll
Yeah.
address accordingly.
Okay,
Sound like a plan?
yeah, sure. George will.
Yep.
George will give you all
Okay.
the information you need. All right, the next thing, I'm just gonna read the first sentence of this. What is it? Yeah. So this comes from the Maine Municipal Center, and it says, "I am pleased to announce that Durham has been selected as the supreme first-place winner of the 2023 Annual Report Competition in the 2,500 to 5,000 population category." So our annual report,
I don't know what that is, but it sounds like we did a good job at it.
it is, got first place.
Oh,
There are
It's
staff
beautiful.
in this town that are very, very excited about that.
Should we frame one and put it on the wall? I mean,
We're gonna get a framed certificate,
all right.
and this is
So-
gonna be on display at the MMA convention.
Right.
So are they collector's items now? Like,
Yeah, the Kimberly Garnett.
Well, they work
created it.
hard on it though, you know, to be recognized, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
that's
You
really
know,
awesome.
so
We'll
Congratulations.
sell autographed copies if you have.
That's really cool, 'cause it's a couple awards Durham's got this year, between that and the plan that they use.
Yeah, the planner and, you know,
Seems
it's,
like we're
you know,
doing good stuff.
things happen, you have a good manager.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it was. We had to do it, didn't
And I'm just kidding, I take no credit for that at all. Kimberly did, and Jessica did.
Nice
they all
work,
did
nice
good
work, Jerry, on that plan.
Jerry, that's a good looking report right there.
Right, huh?
Did you take, did you
He
take
climbed
that,
up that cliff.
did you
He
take
was
that
so
photo,
sleepy.
Jerry?
You get hit over the head with a planning, with a booklet.
Yeah, someone might take advantage of the low light in the parking lot when
Yeah.
Jerry leaves.
Yeah. And that's basically it. That's all the latest news coming out, but, this
Okay.
grant that I put together, that's been,
Can we end all meetings on awards today?
yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Forward?
So, this number 8 is somewhat important, I don't know if you have anything, so I'm gonna have, like I said, I'm gonna put George on the agenda. While I'm gone, Jessica will be replacing me.
Yep.
Sometimes when the agenda gets, when I do the agenda for you folks, it doesn't happen until a few days after this meeting. Well, I'm not going to be here, so I don't know really what might come up. I don't know if there's anything that you wanna discuss, because I'm gonna help Jessica put the agenda
Mhm.
together, tomorrow and Thursday. So she'll have it ready for the next week, and she can add to it if you have to. If you have anything that you wanna discuss, now would be the time to, if you know right now, I'm saying,
When's CIP starting?
when I get back on
Okay,
the 16th. I've been meeting with Paul.
okay.
I've had some good meetings with Paul about the CIP process, so,
Well, I'm not gonna be here, so I'm not gonna add anything to the agenda.
so,
Thank you.
could be like, would be October 10th, is when the next meeting is.
Not
Which
around.
coincidentally-
If you're not around, Joe's not around, it should be probably good. We shouldn't have too many big things.
Right.
Hey, if I tag out early, I could be back for October 10th.
Can't go for more than one.
No.
Can't deal with that.
I'm actually coming back on the 10th.
Took me
but I think
20
till midnight.
2 years to get this first tag, let alone.
So you'll have George, there's nothing, no other old business
There'll
to
be
be left?
George and no,
Nothing from the department heads, okay,
no, the
And then-
comment is now,
okay.
so,
Any other,
We can email you.
Yeah.
The planning board chair on for the first meeting of the month, or we're not doing that anymore? I don't know when he was here last.
we can have him come in.
Oh, wow.
It has been a
It's
while
good to have
since
him and
John-
George in tandem if that's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, and there's definitely, they had a bunch of stuff go
I know they're having a
in front of
meeting,
them
I know
this
that they're
month.
having a meeting to discuss how they've done on their ordinance.
yeah, they have a 10-6 meeting here on our upcoming meetings, so
Right,
maybe they wanna, maybe have John come in along with George.
yeah, George is on vacation this week, so it will be next week when they
Right, right, but I'm saying have them come in on that meeting on the
Yeah.
10th, both of them. Yeah.
All right, so we
Okay.
can call John.
Just in case we have questions that
Yeah.
cross over to both
Yep,
groups.
absolutely.
And they have a meeting coming, all the heads have a meeting coming up to discuss.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, they're all
Yeah.
coming here pretty quick to discuss
Okay.
that. And report back to you at some point.
Okay,
But we can call John Talbot tomorrow and
all right.
have him come in, they can tag team that. So the solid waste committee's all formed, so the first meeting, they were trying to do it this week, it didn't work out, so we're gonna meet when I come back on October 23rd.
I didn't see Josh's name on that,
Okay.
that volunteer list.
So that's moving.
All right.
It's must see TV.
It's been good lately, because I continue to take my video of the trash can, the time, the sticker, where I put it.
One time you bet.
It's exactly what happened.
Hey, we're almost done, let's not
All
get
right.
him started.
Yeah, so
All right,
this next.
So, consent agenda, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So
Second?
Josh moves, Joe seconds. All right, all in favor? Okay,
No, they're fine.
all right, that's unanimous, passes. Consent agenda, upcoming meetings, select board meeting on 10/10 and 10/24. I can't believe we're in October here at the town office. And, planning board meeting, as I said a little earlier, on 10/6, October 6th. Do we need an executive session this evening? I don't, Jerry, we're good? All right, no executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Josh?
Second.
Josh moves, Joe seconds, all in favor? All righty,
All right.
motion passes. Thank you, everybody.